Barakah Yahweh Bashem Yamashah Bashem Kakadash. Alright, double honors to the apostles at Great Millstone. Salute to you brothers teaching the word in sincerity and truth. Okay, so I think about 12 days ago, I was just looking this all come out. Trump basically, if you don't know already, had issued some UFO footage, and obviously we know that when they do stuff, they're always trying to control the narrative of everything, they need things to go in their way and their power so they can try and manipulate it for their good. Because the chariots, so-called UFOs, are the angels of the Lord. They can't. That's too powerful over them. So, they're trying to control. But this is the time that we're living in, where these are the things being spoken about and coming out. So let's play this, okay? And see where we get. Let's play some of this.
Last week, the president said we're going to get UFO released files very soon. Now, the FBI director echoes.
So the idea that there would be life on other planets that may be visited here would not at all shock or surprise me. Have you ever looked into it?
We're looking at it. Our job at the FBI is to work with the White House, the DOW, give them the information. We already delivered our first tranche of information to that committee, and you're going to start seeing those releases literally happening in the very near future. We just met on it.
How come I don't get an invitation to hang out with Sean Hannity? Well, I can't sit there in an ugly sports jacket and bullshit him as well as this guy? We still haven't gotten what was promised on the Epstein files. And who's going to believe this guy? Why would you believe Kash Patel? The guy lied to you about Epstein for profit, gets in there, does nothing, backpedals, and now we're supposed to believe him about UFOs? Or am I being too cynical? Let's ask News Nation special correspondent, investigative journalist par excellence, Ross Coulthart. Ross, it is good to have you. Assuage my misgivings. Do you believe that this is the time we get a release, maybe of the many videos that George and Jeremy Corbell have been telling us that we need to see?
G'day, Chris. I do think we're going to get something. I think there are going to be very limited releases of maybe more blurry videos, maybe some good videos, but I certainly don't think we're going to get what we're all hoping for, and which I think a lot of people, including the American public in the main, generally demand, which is candor. Openness about the full extent of the American government's knowledge about a covert retrieval program and reverse engineering program for non-human technology, aliens in any other word. I've been talking now for too long, many years now, to people inside the government, inside the administration, inside the National Security Council, inside...
Yeah, if you want the truth of what's going on, is that the Heavenly Father in the ships is the Lord and the angels. That's the truth. Okay, then there was some other video where there's supposed to be these secret meetings, and Congress person spoke to some church pastors and told them they're going to tell people, which I don't know if this is going to happen. Well, just watch it was supposed to be some kind of breaking, and then they were saying, well, they're going to say that the scriptures ain't real and the aliens created everybody, and that's, and you know what that is? That's like that Anunnaki rubbish. And also, pushes that as well, David Icke, because he would tell you about the Illuminati, and he's even mentioned the Rothschilds and the Smolats. He would stop talking about them, but he talks about him, and then all of a sudden he'll stop. And people are like, well, how come people like that with Alex Jones? How come you ain't mentioning the Smolats? But he'll give you all this information, but then he'll give bogged out information. Okay, and that's how they do it. So when they are pushing a lot, they're trying to push it for their narrative. But the truth is, we can go through all the different things that they push, we'll see what comes out. But the truth is that the Lord, Yahweh Shai, the Lord and made everything. And they're the ones in the ships. The Lord and the angels are in the ships, okay? So we'll go into some of that. Let's play.
The Pentagon and also in the intelligence community telling me that there is a reality that is being concealed from the American public and from the rest of the planet. And I really doubt very much that we're going to see any kind of meaningful disclosure that suggests that the US government is going to be admitting it's being party to a cover-up. I think what we will get is probably a very limited release of maybe 40 or so videos and photographs that show anomalous objects. But we'll still be teased with the idea there is a mystery there that's worth investigating when we actually know the US government knows a great deal more.
It's such a
Right, and I think that I've watched some videos where they've actually put the footage out, and it was just I've seen some of it, you know, but the kind of footage that they have, they will never, you know, will they show you? Well, we already said what these devils are like. They've already put out some footage that, basically the footage they've put out, from what I've seen, is stuff that you'd already see on videos of leaked information, or people in the streets have seen chariots, you know, and things like that. So, you know, you're dealing with the devil here. The scripture says, never trust thine enemy, because iron rusteth, so is his wickedness.
easy opportunity for someone to come in and be a real disruptor of what matters. You know, someone who comes in and says, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't care. They elected me. I'm putting it out there. We'll see what happens. Ross Coulthart, I hope you and I are still alive for that day. Take care. Thank you for watching.
Well, it's going to happen in this lifetime, so that's what the truth is. Let's do this. Let's go here. Let's put in. Okay, Eric Borleson holds secret meeting. We might go back to that. Let's do this. Adverts, but okay, this video, this is the same individual. He's in a couple of these on these news stations. We'll watch this one. Let's watch this one. All right. Oh yeah, and by the way, the scriptures, just so you know, the scripture says that the angels are in them ships. That's in the book of Psalms. Okay. I think it's 68. I can get it. But I'll get it in a minute. Let's play this.
Anticipation, the Department of War has released the first batch of what they're calling the UFO files, showing shock.
Matter of fact, let me do this. I'll get that one after. Let me read this. Revelation 7, 1 and 7. Just to set the tone. Revelation 1 and 7. The revelation of Yahweh Shai. Right? Let's jump down to 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds. We know the clouds are chariots. And the scriptures are known as a wheel within a wheel. A pillar by day, fire by night. Pillars, you know, flying rolls in the sky. They're known by a lot of things. Okay. The scripture also represents references the Lord and the angels as being on horses, but that's the ships. That's going to bring destruction on NATO, you know, America, NATO, and all the, you know, the armies of the world. Okay, 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, a man, so that the Yahweh Shai is coming back to for judgment on the planet Earth. And that's the great event, a mysterious event, you know, and it's top secret because Esau doesn't want to. He doesn't want you to know the real Israelites are. He don't want you to know the truth of the Most High and His Son, because he's warring against all of that. That's what this whole thing's about. Okay, trying to conquer the Lord, chip everybody, you know, but they can't climb up some other way and conquer. It's not gonna happen. Okay. Let's go back to this.
Files.
So that's a ship, and the Lord said He's actually come back in a ship in Thessalonians. Okay, let's play on.
Well, after months of anticipation, the Department of War has released the first batch of what they're calling the UFO files, showing shocking, never-before-seen footage of unexplainable space phenomena. Among those files, declassified transcripts from the Apollo missions, where astronauts describe witnessing mysterious orbs of light while walking on the moon. Also, Buzz Aldrin reporting...
That's your first BS lies, because they didn't go on the moon. That's the propaganda that they was pushing with the space race. You know, when everyone was... Russia and China was involved, you had the space race. So who's the first up? So they said, well, we went to the moon. You know, they just said, lied. You know, and said, you know, so they could... It's all BS propaganda, man. They were supposed to be the first ones. Okay, we won the space race. But you don't see them going back on the moon. It was all BS. Okay, the apostles go into that a lot. Okay. I think there's a documentary, Apostle Bar brought it out years ago, and I think it was a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. I think that's what the name of it was. If you know, if it's not, you know, we'll put it in the in the comments, or do another video on that. But they never went, and the people are aware of that. Just type it in, you get all sorts of videos now. Just general people just going into it. It's just BS. They never went. Because you still got the zombie hordes out there, and they still believe it. Okay. Or believe anything that the government says.
Little flashes inside the Apollo 11 cabin, and then all the way to dramatic accounts from Apollo 17 of bright particles tumbling through the lunar sky. This new Trump administration initiative is dubbed PURSUE. That stands for Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. More than 160 files and hundreds of incidents are now online, dating all the way back to the 1940s. The Pentagon says the American people can now access these videos and photos instantly with no clearance required. The move fulfills a promise from President Trump to provide maximum transparency. That's a stark contrast, the administration says, to past efforts to discredit these sightings. But before we all start scanning the files, searching for little green men, let's get the full story from News Nation's Mills Hayes, who breaks down the latest on this treasure trove of documents. Mills?
It's not little green men. Okay, this is just BS. So this is just, see what we're saying? Let's get this. Let's go get the Psalms. See if we can get this off the top of the dome. All right, Psalm 68. We can go from 12. Though ye have lin among the pots, yet shall ye be as the wings of a dove, covered with silver and their feathers with yellow gold. That's a ship. So we're going from slavery to deliverance. We was linen amongst the pots, but we're going to be covered with silver and gold. Wings, that's the chariots. When the Almighty scattered kings in it, it was white as snow in Salmon. All right, so let's jump down here to 17. The chariots of the Most High are 20,000. What are the chariots? The ships, the clouds, the wheels are within the wheels. They got different shapes. Okay, the spaceships. You know, whatever, spaceships. Someone tried to scoff and say, well, after spaceships. You get all types of scoffers. Well, the chariots of the Most High are 20,000. even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them, as in Sinai in the holy place. Yeah. So who's in the ships? Thousands of angels. Who's in the chariots? Thousands of angels. Not little green men. So cut it out. Cut it out. And you saw the documentary called Chariots of the Gods. So let's not act like you don't know what's going on. We see the top elites are away. And that's what we're talking about, all this BS that they're pushing out there. Again, trying to control narratives. Trying to, if the chariots come out, well, we're going to make it come out the way we're saying it is. Okay, let's play on.
Treasure trove of documents. Mills?
Right, Alex. I didn't see any little green men when I was going through the files. And the question remains, do aliens exist? That question not answered in these files, at least. And this new drop of deep...
People, you ask somebody and they'll say, well, there's got to be something out there. People are more awake to stuff now. Okay, remember when alien means foreign. It's like you say you're alien, you're alienated. Or you got a word called alienation. It just means that, and they're foreign to this, route. They're celestial beings. The Earth's terrestrial, then they're celestial beings. So their whole body is made up of, they're out in the elements, out there, so, and they come down, the angels. But I'm just saying that, this green men stuff is just BS. Okay, but angels exist, spirits on the left exist and all that.
Classified material shows unexplainable videos and images of UAPs from around the world that are already bringing in even more questions. This video, by far...
And the Lord and the spirits, they have councils in the spirit realm, and they'll say, like, who will cook. There was a scripture where who shall be a lion spirit, and then they said, well, I'll do it this way, I'll do it that way, and a certain spirit jumped up and said, okay, I'll do it. That's how it goes down. Okay, let's put it on.
The most bizarre from a military platform in the Middle East back in 2013, showing an 8-point star floating around and leaving a trail of light behind. Other more recent videos show missile-like objects shooting through the sky in the Middle East in 2022 and 2023 and 2024 over in Japan and the Indo-Pacific. Those videos show larger UAPs emitting lights. And then reports describe that UAPs traveled close to the ocean surface in Greece, taking 90-degree turns at 80 miles per hour, something human technology is not capable of yet.
So, I'm going to say this, just to throw this out there right quick. These look, some of these, I'll just check it, they look on point. But they say, just got to throw this out there. Esau's got technology. Because he's trying to imitate, the chariots. So he's got drones and certain technology that he's got, which is all that will come up. All that's going to be zapped anyway. These little drones and stuff like that. Okay, The Colony showed you that. That should the movie The Colony.
But the documents date all the way back to the 1940s, showing newspaper clippings of UFO sightings and letters to the FBI director at the time, J. Edgar Hoover. And in a 1966 letter, a Virginia police chief of over 20 years asked Hoover to take action, saying that he personally saw flying saucer-like UFOs. And on the first crewed mission to the moon, astronaut Buzz Aldrin described seeing a fairly bright light source aboard the Apollo 11 and little flashes inside the cabin there. NASA images from Apollo 12 and 17 missions show unidentified phenomena emitting light seen above the horizon of the moon. And we did speak with a researcher who says that there is likely more we don't know.
Because from former congressional testimony, we know that we're in possession of recovered craft. And I know this also from people who have been in those programs and I trust and have talked to. Is he going to admit to that? I'm not so sure. But the fact that the data is coming out, I think, is really important.
What if I told you you can go to university without any GCSEs or A levels? The government is now funding
But you
degree
can't watch a
programs
video
in major
without
cities.
adverts.
So sure. But the fact that the data is coming out, I think, is really important.
That researcher saying that President Trump will likely be facing more questions about some of what these files have released. And there is more coming out next week. 46 more declassified UAP videos that the House Oversight Committee requested. Those are coming out next week, and they are likely to be the most revealing so far. Alex.
I know that there are so many people that just can't wait for that to happen. Mills Hayes, thank you very much for the latest reporting there.
We're bringing in News Nation special.
So, but, you know, we need, a point to bring out in this is the truth. You can't deny the truth. So the scripture says it's a high time to wake up out of sleep, because before years ago, that's rubbish, and there's no UFOs, and there's nothing else other than, the scriptures. The fool have said in his heart that there's no Most High. So you had people with that mindset, but now you can't even have that mindset anymore. Because look what's going on in the world. Look what's going on within this conversation. We're talking about chariots, UFOs, government's talking about it, bringing it out. Before they were doing all that hiding, and they're still hiding, but now they're just admitting it. Okay.
Correspondent and host of Reality Check, of course, Ross Coulthart tonight. Ross, it's always so wonderful to see you, and there is so much to comb through already. More than 162 files released. We see videos, photos, sound transcripts as well. What is standing out to you?
Good evening, Natasha. Look, for me, I think the most exciting stuff is actually things that have come before. It's the NASA imagery, the acknowledgement by the Department of War, which is new, that these objects, these blue dots seen over the lunar surface on multiple missions, including Apollo 12 and Apollo 17, they are potentially, according to the Department of War, in a new finding, physical objects. I think that's an astonishing admission by the Pentagon. It implies that something physical, I suspect intelligently controlled, based on the conversations I've had with people who know a lot more about these objects, something physical was hovering over the Apollo lunar missions. I've been told by people who knew Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 lunar module pilot, very well. That Edgar
they never went on the effing moon, okay? So this is all so right off the gate. They're pushing BS. But there's supposed to be a whole, but there's another video, it's just full of clips. Or it might do something on that. Just use it as a backdrop. Okay, but at least they keep going on about it. With all that, they're just glorifying Apollo. Which, if you know anything about Apollo, they worship Apollo, okay? There's statues of Apollo all in the UK. Okay. Apollo generally refers to either the iconic NASA space program or the prominent AI-driven sales intelligence platform. Let's do this. Apollo. Okay, God of music. God of sunlight, music, poetry, prophecy, and plagues. Yes, so Apollo. This is why they named it after this, because ain't there the Greco-Romans come back? And that's a whole thing, that they're the Greek Romans come back. We always show you that. Okay, you had senators back in Rome. What you got today in America, the Senate. Okay, you got those Roman style columns for the White House building. for all these different sorts of different buildings. What did they have in Rome? Roman style columns. Okay. So here is Apollo, and so that's who they're worshipping. They're going up and using these Greco-Roman gods for power. Okay. The origin of the name Apollo is still not properly. Okay, let's do this. Apollo is the Olympian god of light, music, and poetry. Don't you have the Olympics? So they're fully into the spirit of Rome. Healing and plagues, prophecy and knowledge, order, beauty, archery, and agriculture. So they'll attribute certain things to this god. They do sacrifices to these different spirits, whether it's Baal or, they worship certain gods, man, behind the scenes. An embodiment of the Hellenic ideal of Kagaphia. He is harmony, reason, and moderation personified. A false god, by the way, okay? Deuteronomy 4. A perfect blend of physical superiority and moral virtue. A complex deity who turns up in art and literature, possibly as often as Zeus himself. Apollo is the only major god who appears with the same name in both the Greek and Roman mythology. So let's just to show you what they're doing. Apollo, okay. Let me put in Apollo America. Let's see what comes up. The Greek god Apollo has no physical presence in modern America. Well, if you look hard enough, you're gonna find a statue somewhere. Okay. However, his legacy heavily influences American culture. He is widely recognized as the patron of space exploration, embodied by NASA's historical Apollo program, and in modern speculative fiction, where he represents the ideals of American technological progress and arts. Okay, so that's this is where we're going with things. And there's some history on that. I'll have to do another video on that. Okay. Well, let's see it. Check space exploration and NASA. The most notable connection between the ancient god and America is NASA's historic lunar initiative, chosen in 1960 by NASA manager Abe Silverstein. Okay, Abe Silverstein. The name Apollo program was inspired by the image of Apollo driving his chariot of fire across the sun, matching the grand scale of sending Americans to the moon. So they're trying to go in the power of false gods against. So they're proud. So he exalts himself as the eagle. And it goes more in. So what I'm going to do, let's go back to here.
Module pilot very well, that Edgar confessed privately that he'd seen these blue objects with his own eyes, so we can rule them out as lens flares or artifacts of the camera. That's not going to explain what we see here. There is definitely something anomalous that was seen on the lunar surface. And then I guess some of the other imagery which shows dots, orbs, moving in anomalous ways across the screen. There's one in particular, I can't remember the exact video number, but it shows the object maneuvering, doing left-hand turns instantaneously. Those are movements that conform to what we call the 5 observables, measures that we use to assess something as anomalous. I do think, though, the best is yet to come, Natasha. We're told this is only the beginning.
Yeah, any idea when the next drop will be and what we can expect next?
I think it might come as early as the end of this week. We might see another drop this coming Friday, as happened last week. I'm certainly told that there are the 46 videos that have been requested by Representative Anna Paulina and the members of the UAP caucus. They've been demanding access to videos that the Pentagon's been sitting on for some time that have been described to us by multiple sources and multiple witnesses. All of the sources tell us that in some cases these are extraordinarily clear images, 4K quality imagery, for example, of an object moving very fast underwater, far beyond known human technology capabilities. And also there are space shuttle images. I'm told that some of the imagery includes images taken from some of the STS space shuttle missions that feature objects that have never been properly explained, which I have to say, Natasha, really does beg the question. If NASA did its inquiry into UAPs, why did it limit in its terms of reference to terrestrial or aerial phenomena on planet Earth? Why did it constrain its terms of reference to stop effectively an investigation of probably the more interesting anomalies, objects that have been filmed or photographed in lunar orbit or in orbit around the Earth?
Yes, such good questions. And we know one of the files featured sound from the Gemini mission back in 1965. Astronauts.
Yeah, at the start of it, it was said, they didn't even come clean about the Epstein files. That just got blocked, even though, there's all that out, but the Trump connections and nothing happened. So, what do you expect him to, how do you expect him to come about UFOs? So, you're dealing with the devil. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Okay.
Reports seeing a mysterious object to mission control. Let's listen to that quickly together.
Highest paying job right now isn't being a lawyer, software engineer, or even doctor. It's a little niche in finance known as quant. Don't just take my word for it. Here's a publicly available compensation report from levels.fyi. It's a website which compiles data from several tech-related industries. These were the top paying firms specifically for entry-level roles.
So like it said, skip
Reports seeing a mysterious object to mission control. Let's listen to that quickly together.
Bogey at 10 o'clock high. This is Houston. Say again, 7? So we have a bogey at 10 o'clock high. Is that the booster or is that an actual sighting? What? Say again, 7? Well, we have several, looks like the 3 up there, actual sighting. It looks like hundreds of little particles going by to the west out about 3 to 4 miles.
Ross, what are your thoughts after hearing this? Is this significant?
I think that the sightings by astronauts of lunar anomalies are the tip of an iceberg of sightings by astronauts going back decades. It's quite clear that there have been images seen by astronauts over many, many decades. Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut I mentioned earlier, he admitted that he was told not to talk about what he saw on the surface of the moon. He told this privately to friends of his who've spoken to me. He was told it was treason. It was a breach of his security oath to talk about what he saw. I'm not suggesting that NASA specifically is involved in a cover-up, but somebody is, Natasha. Somebody is holding back.
News Nation special correspondent, host of Reality Check, Ross Coulthart. Thank you so much, as always.
For more, let's welcome in renowned theoretical physicist, Harvard professor, and head of the Galileo Project.
Man, come on, listen, they see the cut feeds when chariots are on, they see massive UFOs, but they're not they're not showing that, they're not talking about that. Okay, all this talk and stuff like that. And they're not really they're not really saying anything. Let's be honest.
Avi Loeb, Avi, thank you.
But it just shows you, what the real truth is and where things are headed, where things are, and what's really going on. You prepare for the Lord and the angels to come on the planet Earth, okay?
Much for taking the time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Mills just laid it all out. More than 162 files released. That includes videos, photos, sound, transcripts. I know personally, and I'm a professional reporter, it was overwhelming to me. I can't imagine what it's like for the rest of the public. But what about you, who has that experience and has that knowledge? What really stood out to you from what was released?
Well, I felt like a kid in a candy store in a way, because there are lots of intriguing pieces of information there, dating all the way back to a letter in 1947 to the U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff talking about flying discs. But the actual imagery, part of the information there was redacted, as you can see on the screen right now. And therefore, when I discussed it with my research team of the Galileo project on Friday, it was difficult to assess what the camera is doing, what is it attached to, how fast the object is moving. These are details that are required in order to ascertain whether the object is moving in a way that it cannot be consistent with human-made technologies. Moreover, the Apollo images that we're looking at, they could be a result of flashes of light from impacts on the surface of the moon by asteroids. In fact, the Artemis 2 astronauts did notice 6 such flashes, or what we are seeing might be some artifacts of the reflection in the optics of the camera. What's clear is that the Artemis 2 crew took thousands of photographs and didn't find any lights orbiting the moon right now. So I would not...
There's always something popping up on your phone, man. We'll get this off.
Orbiting the moon right now. So I would not take too seriously the moon shots that we have. But altogether, this is the first step, and presumably in the coming weeks and months, we'll get the more interesting data, because...
So you got all these things that's been released. So you got different audio files, footage and stuff like that. Okay. Because we're in the end, man. Okay. So high time to wake up out of sleep.
That requires more layers of bureaucracy for it to be declassified.
Yeah.
And I very much salute President Trump for releasing these files.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from everyone I'm talking to. More than anything, just happiness that President Trump is taking the steps. And it's interesting to think that perhaps there is an explainable solution for everything. As you mentioned, perhaps it's impacts on the lunar surface from various objects. It wasn't just images, right? It's also video and sound bites, including this one from the Gemini mission back in 1965. That's where you'll hear astronauts reporting to see a mysterious object to mission control. Listen to this.
So if you want to make a remote income from home, and you're a beginner, meaning right now you have
That's where you'll hear astronauts reporting to see a mysterious object to mission control. Listen to this.
Bogey at 10 o'clock high. This is Houston. Say again, 7? We have a bogey at 10 o'clock high. Is that the booster or is that an actual sighting? Say again, 7? We have several, looks like debris up here, actual sighting. It looks like hundreds of little particles going by to the left out about 3 to 4 miles.
I mean, that's fascinating. He calls them bogeys. Obviously, we know pilots typically use that term when talking about other aircraft in the air. I know you're probably not going to have the answer to this, but I mean, do we have any explanation for that, or are we just left to sort of speculate on our own? Or do you think perhaps this is proof that there is extraterrestrial life out there and that they just saw it in that moment?
He keeps up with stupid ass questions. Is there in all this? Like I said, Esau made a documentary back in the day called Chariots of the Gods, and what he had done was mentioned, I think, Jeremiah or Ezekiel, you know, because that's a heavy. They even made a movie on that, Ezekiel. Okay, in the chariot, right? Revelation 19 and 11, and I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called faithful and true. And then righteousness, he doeth judge and make war. That links up with Revelation 1 and 7. Okay, the Lord's coming in a great ship. But here it's known, it's mentioned as a horse. A great white horse. And if you notice, even in Psalm 68, a ship there was mentioned as a white ship. So you can get that. You get ships with different coloured, different gold and silver and stuff like that. Gemstones. It says his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And many crowns, because he conquered all these nations. Let's jump to 14. And the armies which were in heaven followed him, upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. It's the angels following him. So it goes into it. Alright, but what we're going to do here, keep playing.
Proof that there is extraterrestrial life out there and that they just saw it in that moment.
No, it's definitely not proof because we don't have enough information. It could be, for example, meteor fragments. It could be space trash, that obviously could have flown by, or, and the flashes of light that were reported by some astronauts, they could be related to cosmic rays. We really need more data, better information to assess whether something is clearly unexplainable by natural or human-made objects.
So is it fair to say that you have more questions than answers at this point? I mean, I hate to put you on the spot and try to get a solid answer for you, but I know I certainly do. It's great that we're watching these videos and seeing these pictures, but I'm not sure it answered any of my questions.
Right, yes, definitely. I have more questions, and that's the process of science where...
All right, this is becoming some good, low level kind of you know what I'm saying? We've just shown you in the scriptures that the Lord and the angels are in them ships and they're coming for war. All right, so that's the point, man. I'm gonna close it out on this. I've got another video to do on this with actual some of the footage and stuff, so we'll see where it goes. All right, so with that, shalom.